Yo, what's good, everybody? Today I'm talking about Devin Haney versus Brian Norman Jr. A very intriguing fight, a polarizing fight in the sense that you're either with Haney or you're either with Norman, right? It seems that there's no in between with the public. It's kind of like Spence versus Bud, how everybody, drew a line in the sand and picked a side and stayed there and supported their guy to the end. I'm getting the same feeling here. Norman supporters are adamant that their guy's gonna finish Haney and retire him. Haney backers think that B&J is getting overrated because of his recent stoppages. Now me, I'm kind of in the middle. I see the argument for both to win. Brian Norman Jr. got some serious thumpers. He got major crack, right? He can really put a hurting on these guys. He has the power to erase memories in those fists. He's a very good fundamental boxer as well. At least recently, he's shown very good fundamentals. Now, in his earlier fights, there were a lot of holes in his game, like entering range without a setup, without jabbing. And, he paid the price by getting hurt and dropped by Boca Chica. His distance control wasn't that good as he kept smothering himself against Randall. But in recent times, he's shown major improvements, and surprisingly enough, despite the heavy-handed killer that he is, I actually think that he might be better fighting on the back foot when somebody goes after him and wants to force a fight. Santillan and Sasaki, they both went after him, and it was easy for him to pick them apart and catch him making mistakes. And both fights were his marquee wins to date. He finished those fights in spectacular fashion, which earned him the right to make millions with Riyadh season, right? As for Devin Haney, we all know who Devin Haney is, right? A former undisputed lightweight champion, a 2-division world champion. He has a good resume for his age, and he's been a polarizing figure in boxing himself. His path to his championships and marquee wins, I would say, have been carefully laid out for him. But, nevertheless, he has been in there with a good amount of former world champions and a legend in Lomachenko, and he has learned from those experiences. But, looking at the tail of the tape, we can see that Haney and Norman have very similar dimensions. Haney is just an inch taller at 5'9", but Brian Norman Jr., he has a 1-inch reach advantage with 72 inches compared to Haney's 71-inch reach. Norman is 24 years old with a record of 28-0 with 22 knockouts. Haney is 32-0 with 15 knockouts, and he is 26 years old. Both of these guys, they're young, they're near their physical prime, and both have a point to prove. There's a lot of aspects to discuss with this matchup, and I'm going to start with the mental aspect. Brian Norman Jr., he is clearly a dog. He's been on a very impressive run lately, knocking out his opponents left, right, and center. And from the way he speaks, he really does believe in his power. He's been saying all build up how he's gonna stop Devin Haney, how he's gonna touch his arm and he's gonna break his ankles, some crazy shit like that. And quite frankly, it's been hilarious. B&J, he's got an old soul. He's not with the other shit in this game. He's not with the clothes. He's not for the fame. He's in here for boxing. He's here for the smoke. Now, Devin Haney, there's been a lot of questions regarding the state of his mental health. Obviously, the traumatic beatdown from the Garcia fight has played a major role in his most recent fight against Jose Ramirez. Plainly speaking, he did look terrified in that fight. He did look scared to get hit. It was an excessive amount of movement in that fight with a limited amount of punches thrown. He really looked like a fighter experiencing PTSD, which honestly, in a way, one must respect. To be put down in the canvas 3 times against his nemesis in front of the whole world to see, then get clowned on despite everybody knowing he got cheated. I mean, that'll do a number for most people out there. But, for him to get back in the ring and challenge himself despite the PTSD is honestly something to commend, in my opinion. Obviously there's reasons why he got clowned and why people don't love Devin Haney, but that's besides the point. The fact that he went into the ring again with lingering PTSD should be respected. But, that's a lot of words from me to point out the fact that people do think that Haney is a shot fighter mentally. But both B&J and Haney, they got something to prove, as I said earlier. Brian Norman Jr. want this to be his coming out party, to show the world that he is the truth. And Haney want to keep his spot with the big dogs, and prove that he isn't shot and he learned from his mistakes in the past. As for their fighting styles, we all know what Devin Haney does. He's a stick and move type of fighter. He's a boxer. At his best, he's got good offensive fundamentals. He's got a good jab, good timing. He's quick, very good feet, and he has good timing. Brian Norman Jr. at his best is a powerhouse. He has a good power jab. He has a lethal left hook. Very athletic. He's explosive. And as I said earlier, he has shown to have good fundamentals himself. So how do I see these two matching up? I feel Haney is more proven. I feel that's fair to say. He's fought better competition and he's fought an array of different styles, yes. So I'll talk about Norman's path to victory because I feel most of us know what Haney got to do to win this fight. So the thing with me is that Haney is uber fleet-footed. He's a quick fighter overall. You know, he's a quick thinker. He's got quick hands. He's got quick feet. Probably one of the quickest feet in the game right now, as you know, he demonstrated against Ramirez. No matter how awful and petrified he looked in that fight, if it showed us anything at all, it would be that he has really, really fast feet. And if he doesn't want to get hit, he is not gonna get hit. I think his feet will be a problem for Norman. The Norman has shown to have a very quick first step. He's springy and explosive, and he can close the gap whenever he wants when his opponent is in front of him. He'll pounce in with a power jab and deal a serious damage that way. So if he manages to cut the ring off on Haney and, you know, get him by the ropes, this should be relatively easy for B&J. He seems to be stronger than Haney. I feel if Haney got by the ropes, Brian Norman Jr. can really just bully him on there and pick his shots. You know, Brian Norman Jr., he's a rough rider. You know, he is a junkyard dog. He doesn't mind when things get messy. He can put on a hurting on Haney on the inside, no problem, especially if he can negate Haney's clinch attempts. So yeah, the first problem for Norman to solve is to cut the ring off and close the gap on Haney. Another problem is Haney's jab, right? Haney has a good jab, a very consistent jab, and is very good at distance management. His jab is a disruptor, among other things. You know, it sets up his other shots, and ultimately it's a point scorer, right? We've seen his jab frustrate and win fights by itself. Norman, you know, he has to solve that problem. And I think he can do it. You know, Norman has a good jab himself. He has a very good power jab, as I said earlier. And if he shoots with Haney, kind of like what Ryan did with his left hook, I think he's going to find a lot of success that way. But overall, to get through that jab by Haney, he has to be on his P's and Q's. He has to outthink and outbox Haney. You know, jabbing with Haney isn't as clear-cut as it sounds. There are prerequisites Norman got to pass before being able to successfully, you know, shoot with Haney. He has to get Haney's rhythm down and his timing down before he lands something of consequence. Those two things, the jab and the feet, Norman has to find a way to negate those in order for him to win. Haney, on the other hand, he has to keep the natural welterweight in Brian Norman Jr. off of him. If he allows B&J to work on him early, it's wraps. You know, if his jab ain't on point or shit, if he has no mustard behind it, and if B&J can just power through it, that's real bad news for Haney. Now Haney will always have his feet to fall back on, but at that point he's really just running. You know, he'd really just be surviving, and surely the judges won't give him the rounds that way. So for me, Haney has to establish his jab early and throw the 1-2 once B&J tries to come in. He'd got to throw the 2 with some vigor to really let Brian Norman Jr. know that it's not safe to get closer, it's not safe to come in. And Haney got to keep moving laterally. You know, do not let B&J plant his feet and springboard himself onto you. You know, I said earlier, Norman got really springy feet. He can explode forward and cut the distance in an instant with a power jab to boot. If Haney stays in front of B&J for too long, he's gonna get caught and it's wraps. You know, there's a lot more that go into this fight, but I really think if you strip it all down, these are the winning conditions for these two fighters, and whoever executes their game plan better will win. It's a very close matchup. It's a toss-up for me, and truthfully, I don't think anybody should be too confident with their pick because this really is a 50-50. To cut the suspense, I am leaning towards Devin Haney pulling off the decision win. I've always leaned Haney when it was announced, and I still lean Haney. You know, it's very, very close. I'm not confident with my pick, but I've seen Haney fight similar opposition before and have a lot of success. I can't say the same for Brian Norman Jr. You know, I know people will point at the Ryan fight, but in my opinion, Haney came into that fight with the wrong attitude. He came in there thinking that Ryan was off the rails, and he thought that shit was sweet. He thought it was easy work. He took the money for a major disadvantage, and he even tried to take the fight to Ryan to make a statement. And he paid the price. You know, he got battered and humiliated. I don't think Haney makes that same mistake again. I think he comes into this fight super switched on, super sharp, and he'll be on high alert for B&J's power shots. He now knows he isn't invincible. He now knows that he can be hurt and dropped, and he isn't riding his high horse anymore. And I really think he'll stay disciplined in this fight. He will fight a fundamental fight, and he'll stay defensively responsible for the entirety of the fight. Now, there is that issue that B&J might be too strong for him, seeing as this is Haney's first fight at welterweight. Haney didn't have that pop at 135 or 140, so what is he gonna do at 147? Honestly, I feel he'll be a bit stronger physically. He should be sturdier, and he should be healthier. You know, his speed and reaction time might take a hit, but I think he'll be a little bit more durable. At the same time, it is very possible that he isn't suited to be a welterweight, and he might even be more fragile against these bigger guys. I guess we'll know on Saturday, right? But like I said, I'm not the most confident on this pick. I can see a path to victory for Brian Norman Jr. You know, he is a killer. He's young. He's super athletic. His explosivity and will to win make it very possible for him to just blitz and stop Haney in the first half of this fight. You know, I'm aware of that. I'm just ever so slightly leaning towards Devin Haney's boxing, you know, his experience. You know, Haney's been under the bright light for years. We can't forget that this is a huge step up in competition for Brian Norman Jr. And he hasn't fought anybody as good a boxer as Devin Haney. So, you know, we will see. There's a lot of questions to be answered. This is a great matchup. It's a toss-up. And me, I can't wait. But I want to hear from you guys. I'm sure a good bunch of you disagree wholeheartedly, and I'm ready for your rebuttal. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and you know, let's discuss. But other than that, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Oh, and one more thing that I completely forgot to add on was that I really think that the first 4 rounds of this fight is going to be very telling as to how the rest of the fight is going to go. And what's crazy is that despite this being a 50-50 matchup, in my opinion, I do think that both of these guys can make it look real easy. Like I said earlier, I feel like Norman has the capability to blitz and stop Haney in the first half. But at the same time, Haney also has the ability to make it look so easy and 12-0 Brian Norman Jr. You know, that's just my opinion. That's how I see it. But yeah, I want to know what you guys think. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day.